Many thanks for joining today's edition of our weekly National Assembly update, The Maze on ASO Television. I am Rosemary UKOKO-TEGA. Today's program in brief. Passage of supplementary appropriation bill at both chambers. At the House, lawmakers yanked off allocation for presidential yacht and increased student loan instead.
As far as we are concerned, we don't have that presidential yacht anymore. We have increased the student loan. If you can recall, student loan was 5 billion naira in the budget, but now we have increased it from 5 to 10 billion so that our students can be able to access that facility. We don't have that yet anymore.
Call for review of NYSC scheme at the House. Watch us live on DSTV 392, Star Times 127, Free TV 507, UHF band 38. Check out all editions of The Maze on our YouTube channel, ASO Radio and Television.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite.
This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television DSTV Channel 392, Star Times Terrestrial Channel 127, Free TV Channel 507, People's TV Channel 285, and UHF Channel 38.
You're watching The Maze on ASO Television. Lawmakers at both chambers of the National Assembly passed for second reading the 2023 Supplementary Appropriation Bill of 2.176 trillion naira at resumed plenary sitting for the week. That was Tuesday. This followed an earlier separate communications forwarded by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to both Senate and the House. President Tinubu, in the letters which also contained the 2024 to 2026 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, said the supplementary budget is for wage payments, cash provisions for the vulnerable, as well as other critical infrastructure and projects. On the 2024 to 2026 medium-term expenditure framework, that is MTEF, and fiscal strategy papers, FSP, the President expressed optimism the National Assembly would accord the documents the normal favorable consideration and due approval. Following this development, both Senate and House committees on appropriation held separate defense sessions with concerned ministers and heads of other agencies. First, we have the session at the House with ministers of FCT, Works, and others appearing alongside chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and heads of security agencies.
The chairman, all of us are aware of the situation of FCT. So many people have complained about basic infrastructure. So many people have complained about insecurity. So many people have complained about those analysts of FCT. I would have environmental protocol ordinarily. Maybe the chairman of the committee of FCT will help to do that. What is allocated to FCT is 100 billion. And out of that 100 billion, we're requesting for 3.4 billion for security, equipment, buying of vehicles. All the security agencies have complained of lack of vehicles, lack of logistics. You remember of what has happened about this one chance, job security border and the rest of them. Insecurity had been a problem of FCT before I came on board. And so we felt that we should be able to tackle it head on by providing logistics to various security agencies. Of course, there are infrastructure needed, which is ongoing before I came, or was abandoned before I came. But these infrastructures are needed to be completed now that we have the dry season coming. Take off, for example, B6, B12. When I came on board, I have to make these contractors like Jonas Berger, Central, and all of them to go back. Now we believe that before we enter the season next year, this infrastructure roads would have been completed. Again, talk about the completion of rehabilitation and take-off Abuja rail project. You will agree with me that this one project that Mr. President takes so important and which would help in decongesting our traffic situation. I've been there as I came on board, and Mr. President directed the day the Nigerian Bar Association held the annual conference that he wants to ride on this metro line, at least in his 1 year in office, and which is a major, if we can achieve it, and which we think with your support we are going to achieve it. The amendment I want to make there is this. Yes, it is provided 22 billion. Our problem is the dollar component of the project. You know, this project was awarded Naira and dollar components. Right now, the contractor CC and CCECC is saying that they need their $7 million. I will plead, if it is possible, with this 22 billion, if looking at the differentials, if we can say, okay, provide for the dollar component of $7 million, and then whatever that is remaining can be the Nigerian, the Naira component. Because we tried to pay them in Naira, they said no, they cannot. The contract was based on dollar and Naira. And let me not just waste your time because there are so many people. I want to adopt all that have been provided here, that if we are giving this, we believe that a lot of people will say the changes in Abuja before we come back for the 2024 appropriation. So if you permit me, I want to sincerely adopt it and to say I will not go beyond what Mr. President has forwarded to you. Thank you very much.
The request for 2023 supplementary budget became necessary to restore some of the funds removed from the 2022 supplementary appropriation in order to enhance project completion and provide emergency repair works on failed sections of the road on the federal capital. The 2023 supplementary budget proposal, the sum of 300 billion is proposed for the Federal Ministry of Works, targeted especially to the highway sectors. This is to create an environment for free flow of traffic on the federal road network, to enhance movement, especially as the yearly tourist season is approaching. The breakdown of the proposal is as follows. The ongoing projects, including the ones that the funds were moved in 2022 supplementary appropriation, is proposed to take 197 billion 276,594,011 naira. We have, through the motions of the National Assembly for intervention over a number of emergencies on our roads due to flooding, due to bridges collapse, and also inputs from the federal controllers from the various states of 36 states and FCT. We prepared a total intervention on 260 projects, totaling 217 billion. And we thought we could fund 50% of that project, which should have been 108 billion. Because these are emergency projects, that are just within 1 billion. And it's not something that ought to be stretched. And so we had to manage the envelope by putting 82 with a shortfall of about 26 billion. Because we thought that if we do 50% now, then we should be able to do 50% in 2024 appropriation. It should not be allowed to linger if we need to achieve this. And other further emergency projects or special projects is 20 billion, and that is the 300 billion. Let me use the opportunity to state some of the challenges of Ministry of Works. Mr. Chairman, Deputy Chairman, our other Chairman, and Honorable House of Assembly members, I seek your kind intervention in our road sector. For us in the Ministry of Work, road has a lot to do with our economic revolution and to reset the country. Road has the ability to enhance security. If you look at the kidnapping that happen all over the country, most of them happen at the point where the roads have failed. Let me also say that without road, it's difficult, to enhance our agricultural revolution. This is very important. Right now, we have very serious challenges all over the country. The country, Nigeria, the people of this country, they need roads to be done for them. Right now, the economy of our states are in jeopardy because interstate movement is very much difficult now. Some projects have lasted for 17 years, some have lasted for 20 years. And you see a project that is started with 34 billion being augmented to 154 billion. It's not healthy for the society, it's not healthy to the ears. And anybody who hears that will want to ask questions. And let me also use the opportunity to appeal on the way of appropriation. If you have a project that is going to cost like 20, 30 billion, and we appropriate 200 million, we are just dashing money to the contractor. It's not desirable that such projects should be awarded because it can't even constitute 1%, not to talk about 30% legal mobilization to the project. So it is very important that we pay serious attention on the ongoing projects and see how we can finish it. And let me commend Mr. President, because when he came on board, he put the interest of the nation first. And what did he do? He directed me that all the ongoing projects must be maintained. And let me say that the administration inherited a total of 2,604 projects, totaling 14 billion. And out of this 14 billion, 3-point-something billion, was paid between May and now. And we have some funding due to the tax credit of private sectors, due to the NMPC intervention. And when I resumed, we had a net a deficit of 6 trillion. And some of these ongoing projects are, interwoven with some critical new projects that we want to add. And there's some projects that have been abandoned in the past 20 years. So Mr. President directed that we should bring all of them on board, and that is going to cost, about 11 trillion. So on the whole, to address our road sector for the next 4 years, we'll be needing about 18.6 trillion. And so the National Assembly must have to, weigh a thinking cap on how we can address seriously our road sector. Finally, let me also appeal to the National Assembly. For the executive to respect your motion on certain intervention, we must have a contingency fund. And finally, sir, I was very happy when this Honorable House deliberated on the use of asphalt and concrete. So I want to tell the House that the concrete pavement we are proposing for most of our roads are much cheaper. They are much cheaper by this analysis. They are longer in terms of durability, and the variation on concrete pavement is of arithmetical progression, while the pavement on our asphalt is of geometric progression. And so I want this Honorable House to assist us one on the appropriation, so that not only to appropriate, not less than 1.2 trillion in our annual budget, we should be able to work with you to come and think outside the box on how we can fund our road sector. It will help Nigerians. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, for the opportunity.
I want to start by making an important clarification that the 18 billion in the supplementary appropriation is not all for the conduct of elections. Actually, the substantial part of it is about personnel costs. You recall that in April this year, there was a 40% increase in peculiar allowance to public servants across the country. It was not provided for in our budget for 2023, which is this year, the current budget, because the budget was passed in December last year, so we couldn't have made provision. At the same time also, there was another circular from government dated February where the DTA, the duty toll allowance, and other consequential allowances were increased by government. There was no provision in our statutory budget. And we have one of the largest workforces in the country, over 15,600 staff, and it's not easy to find the money to pay in the absence of supplementary appropriation. So we made a case to government, and we have been included in this supplementary appropriation.
We have provided seeds and seedlings and other agricultural inputs for each zone of the Federation to the tune of 11.7 billion naira per zone. Then I move on to, like I said, we have also the National Agricultural Growth Scheme, NAGS, Agro Pocket, which is partly sponsored by the African Development Bank, where, like I said earlier, we have wheat, maize, rice, and cassava for dry season. But we need to complement their efforts, because as it stands now, Mr. Chairman, we know the inputs are very costly. We have to provide seeds free of charge to all farmers. We want to at least achieve 200,000 to 250,000 hectares of farmland for this dry season. In wheat alone, we want to achieve anywhere between 70,000 to 100,000. We have earmarked the support that we're to give to this for 25 billion naira. As we speak today, fertilizer is beyond the reach of the common farmer. And so government needs to subsidize fertilizer. For the NAGS program, what we have now is subsidy of all inputs to the tune of 50%. Even that, at 50%, it's on the high side. So I think government needs to come in and subsidize further. Then we have the coming rainy season for 2024. We all know that planning ahead of time is the key to whatever success that you want to achieve for any farming season. In the past, budgets are passed and procurement processes takes time, and until the late hour or even beyond the planting season. So what we need to do now today is to plan way ahead so that we will have all our inputs, all our preparations, and implements and infrastructure ready in place before the next rainy season for 2024. And this we have earmarked 11.7 billion naira per zone for the 6 zones of the Federation. This is the total of the 200 billion naira.
I've had my minister's request. We met and discussed on the supplementary budget together. Our request was 300 and something billion, but the president approved 100 billion to FCT. Our minister, I had a discussion with the chairman of appropriation this morning with supplementary issue, but he told me if our request could not meet up in the supplementary, in the main budget 2024 appropriation, we are going to sit and look at FCT's request. Because you are coming today as FCT minister, a lot of people have seen FCT is changing. Roads in FCT is now different with FCT that we know. You assured us in the last meeting we had together that by March April next year, we are going to see a lot of things in FCT. Before, in FCT, everybody believes FCT is only land. But in your time, he said it's not land. Let's develop FCT first so that we leave legacies by 4 years. Thank you.
Chairman, Senate Committee on Appropriations, Senator Solomon Olamilekon, spoke to newsmen on the same issue.
We have done a thorough job in looking critically into the documents submitted to us by the President, that is the Supplementary Appropriation Bill of 2023. And in that request, about 7 agencies were affected, that is the security agencies, Ministry of Work, FCT, Agric, Housing, and the police are all affected. And we have taken turn, one after the other, to ask questions about the justification of what was contained in that document regarding the Appropriation Act. And they have equally taken time to explain to us the reason why, at this point in time, they are in dire need of this fund so that they can perform optimally. As you can see, that this is the dry season coming up, and we believe that strongly that both the security and provision of infrastructure, repairs of our infrastructure in terms of road, this is the period that could be done. And the President has swiftly moved into action to ensure that at least he make funds available for these agencies of the government who can quickly work round the clock and take advantage of the season. And that's what they have simply done. So, by and large, we have listened to them one after the other, and it is expected that our report that will lead to eventual passage of this document should be ready to give to the Senate to reasons why we should approve or disapprove of this request. But I can assure you, I think we are satisfied with what we have had. We have not left anything unturned. Every issue has been dealt with thoroughly, and I believe that at the end of the day, we should have a favorable report that will have satisfied the yearnings of the Senate and by extension of Nigeria as a whole by the time the document is eventually passed into law.
Report of the House Committee was laid on the floor during Thursday's plenary and was adopted. However, the budgetary allocation of the presidential yacht was yanked off as lawmakers decided instead to increase that of student loan to 100 billion naira from the initial 5.5 billion naira. We have here the Chairman, House Committee on Appropriation, Mr. Abubakar Bichi, telling how report of the committee was received.
We have increased their budget from 456 to 546 billion 209,099,671. So then police formation and command will give them 50 billion, while the FCT they have about 100 billion naira. You know, FCT is very important because we want to make sure FCT can compete with any city in the world. That's why we have decided to give them 100 billion naira. While Office of the National Security, we know how important that office is. Initially, the initial budget was 27 billion, but currently we have increased their budget to 50 billion naira. While the State House, the initial budget was 28, and we still maintain that figure as 28 billion naira as well. Ministry of Agri, we know how important that ministry is. You're talking about the food security, and of course, it's very critical and important to our people across the nation. We have maintained the initial figure of 200 billion naira as well. While Ministry of Housing, you know, we have a serious housing deficit in this country, and Mr. President agenda, he wants to build as much as he can. So we have approved 100 billion naira for Ministry of Housing, and that's what he actually did. Service whiteboard initially was 615 billion, but currently we reduced it from 615 to 515 billion naira as well. And for INEC, you know, initially their request was 18 billion naira. Yesterday we had an engagement with the INEC chairman, as you're all aware, and he has convinced us about his submissions. We have maintained the 18 billion naira as well. So far we have approved the sum of 2,476,791,286,033 naira only. So this is what we did today, and we'll continue to do as much as we can to support our Nigeria, to support the government, so that our people can see the importance for this democracy as well. As far as we are concerned, we don't have that percentage anymore. We have increased the student loan. If you can recall, student loan was 5 billion naira in the budget, but now we have increased it from 5 to 10 billion so that our students can be able to access that facility in order for them to go to the school and to be affordable for them. This is what it is actually. So far we have approved about 210 billion naira for Nigerian workers, and I'm sure they are going to see that in fact as soon as possible. So it has been approved by the House of Representatives today. We in the Chancellor Assembly, we are very determined to make sure all the money appropriated. We are make sure that our members, especially those standing committees, will oversight those projects to make sure all the money that has been paid has been utilized judiciously, so that Nigerians can see it and can see the impact. From now to 3 months, we are going to call them and ask them what they have done with that money we have been provided to them.
Away from the appropriation bill, other national issues gained prominence during proceedings within the week. At the House, a motion on urgent need to invite the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation to explain to the House steps taken to disburse the over 1.1 trillion naira conditional cash transfer to 15 million households as moved by Mr. Adewale Adebayo was adopted.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the House notes that the conditional cash transfer program is an immediate intervention by the federal government to cushion the effect of the removal of petroleum subsidy and other economic shock for vulnerable groups in Nigeria. The House also notes that the conditional cash transfer is one of the 15 items in the Memorandum of Understanding between the federal government and the organized labor on October 2nd, 2023. The House also aware that 15 million households will be receiving 25,000 each over a period of 3 months. Mr. Speaker, sir, I was also aware that there has been a lot of unsatisfactory feedback from the ways and manner palliatives to vulnerable Nigeria have been handled by some ministries, departments, and agencies, which has not in any way reduced hardship in the land. It is pertinent to remind this honorable House about the ugly scenario witnessed during the COVID-19 palliative distribution few years ago, where items from international donors meant to cushion the effect of the pandemic were mismanaged. Cognizance that removal of subsidy necessitated the introduction of various programs, policies, and intervention to alleviate and boost the economy of families and small businesses. Also cognizance that the National Assembly members, being closer to the people of Nigeria, are meant to represent the interests and concerns of their constituents at the national level. Therefore, deserve to be fully briefed and carried along in the implementation process. Worried that there is a growing suspicion of ways and manners this program will be implemented. Mr. Speaker, sir, the House also worried that the lack of transparency handling of the previous conditional cash transfer program has led to the corruption and fraud, where fraud intended for the vulnerable people were misappropriated by individuals. The House resolve our prayers, mandate the Committee on Constituency Outreach and Committee on Poverty Alleviation to invite the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation to give detailed policy document adopted in allocation and distribution of funds for the conditional cash transfer in order to ensure transparency and accountability, which are fundamental principles of good governance. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, I so move.
Those in support should say aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it.
The motion, as voted on and adopted, was referred to House Committee on Constituency Outreach, VAT and Poverty Alleviation. One motion that got lawmakers emotional was on the murdered Miss Chalia Grace Silas, a Plateau girl carrying out her National Youth Service in Kaduna State. A lawmaker from Plateau State, Ms. Benny Lam, moved the motion demanding justice and review of the National Youth Service Corps NYSC scheme. Let's have here the motion as on the floor of the House.
The House notes that on October 18, 2023, Ms. Chalia Grace Silas, a National Youth Service Corps member deployed to Kaduna State, was brutally murdered while jogging in Barnawa, Kaduna South local government area. The House also notes that the late Ms. Chalia Grace Silas hails from Tabat in Langtang North Federal Constituency, Plateau State, and a rehabilitation sciences graduate from the University of Jos, tragically died at the hands of her assailants while undertaking the mandatory one-year National Youth Service Corps service in Kaduna State. The House is informed that the tragic incident is one of the numerous murders of innocent girls and women nationwide, with perpetrators often accounted for and not brought to justice. This motion notes that the safety and security of the girl child is no longer guaranteed, given the continued liberty and freedom enjoyed by these hapless assailants, who still roam the streets preying on their next victim. The House acknowledges that prompt justice in this case would deter potential perpetrators, thereby ensuring a safer environment for Nigerian children and residents. The House is aware that delaying justice in this case will be equivalent to denying justice to the victims' families and loved ones, as well as the entire nation. The House is also cognizant of the fact that if nothing is done to stop continuous attacks, rape, and murder of young girls and women across Nigeria, it will render the country unsafe to live. Mr. Speaker, the House resolves to urge the IG of Police to speedily identify and bring the assailants to book. The House also mandates the Committee on Police to investigate the murder of Ms. Chalia Grace Silas. This motion seeks to ask the House to mandate the Committee on Youth Development to review the Safety Corps members as they fulfill their one-year compulsory National Youth Service Corps assignments, to reach out to the family and to collaborate with the police as they investigate the killers of the Corps member. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I so move. Mr. Speaker, her mother, her father is alive, and that's the only child, the only child they have is late Ms. Chalia Silas. That's why we demand justice, that the killers be found and brought to book. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I rise this morning to second this pathetic motion as moved by my dear colleague. I so second.
Those in support of this motion as amended should say aye. Aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it.
May her soul continue to rest in peace. A similar topic was received as motion of urgent national importance still on the floor of the House on Wednesday. A lawmaker from Rivers State, Mr. Awaji Inombank Abiante, moved the motion on the need to curb the dangerous trend in the killing of young girls for ritual purposes, and was seconded by Mr. Francis Waive. Here.
Recent wave and sustained killings of our young girls, who are mostly undergraduates, by their supposed boyfriends for perceived ritual purposes. The House also notes with dismay the recent murder of a 20-year-old girl, Ms. Justina Otuene, an undergraduate student of the Department of Biochemistry, University of Port Harcourt, by one Damian Okoligwe, who is also an undergraduate student of the same university, just last week. The murder of Augusta Osedion, a final year student of Leeds University, in July 2023 by her boyfriend, Benjamin Best, who goes by the nickname Killer Boy. This happened in Lagos. the mother of Ms. Ogeni Fejiro Ochuko, a final year student of Ambrose Ali University, who was equally killed in August 2023 by her boyfriend, Victor Ochonugo, in Benin, and several other unreported cases. This House should be worried that these killings have almost become a daily occurrence, with several other reported cases of missing females with their whereabouts still unknown. The House should also be worried that few of the reported missing victims are often found dead without traces of their perpetrators. This House should be disturbed that these killings take similar patterns of dismembering the bodies of the victims, whereby their vital organs are removed. The House should be further disturbed that the perpetrators of these heinous crimes are young boys who might not be walking alone, but with some strong cartels. The House,
silence, please,
should be most disturbed that our young girls have become an endangered species. Cognizant of the need to protect our young girls, and indeed every Nigerian, as enshrined in Section 14 sub 2B of the 1999 Constitution, as altered. I therefore invite this House to kindly observe a minute of silence for Ms. Otuene, Ms. Augusta, and Ms. Ogeneji-Ferro, and other victims of these premeditated killings by heartless gangsters. This House should also resolve to call on the Inspector General of Police to set up a crack team to conduct a holistic investigation with the sole aim of unmasking the cartels behind these killings and bring them to justice. I also urge my colleagues to mandate the House Committee on Legislative Compliance to ensure compliance and report back to the House within 6 weeks. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Those in support of this motion should say aye. Those against should say nay. The ayes have it.
Many thanks for watching today's edition of The Maze. See you Friday next week at 8 p.m. Until then, keep watching all editions of The Maze on our YouTube channel, ASO Radio and Television. I am Rosemary UKOKO-TEGA. Enjoy the rest of your night.